Welcome to Screen Junkies News. It's Monday, and that means it's time to talk about the box office with Mr. Dan Murrell. It's charting time. Time to chart.
Time to chart.
Chart that box office. You know, unsurprisingly,
we knew this was coming.
We knew it was coming. We braced ourselves.
We did. But it's...
couldn't be stopped.
Yeah, there's good news if you are a fan of this franchise. There's good news if you're not a fan of the 50 Shades of Grey franchise. Both sides. As expected, it opened at number 1 at the box office this weekend. It is a franchise low here in the U.S., $38 million, just over. 50 Shades Darker opened with 46. 50 Shades of Grey opened with 85 million 3 years ago. So if you're not a fan of the 50 Shades franchise, you can say, oh, well, good. This last one opened the lowest of all of them. However, it opened to over $130 million worldwide and pushed the global total revenue for this franchise to over $1 billion, that is billion with a B, dollars worldwide, compared to a $150 million budget for all three movies combined. That's not a bad return on your investment if you're Universal. So, 50 Shades is a billion-dollar franchise, and unless they start making more, we have seen the end of it. So, good news, bad news. For whichever way you fall.
We are 50 Shades freed for now.
Yes.
But I wonder what other BDSM erotica novels are being developed into feature films right now.
I heard that there was one based on a Divergent fan fiction that's picking up some steam.
Oh, because that worked out so well with the actual thing.
I don't know.
That would be amazing. That would be hilarious.
That would be hilarious.
It's we tried, Dan, to warn people. I want to know how much there are legitimate, and listen, there are legitimate fans of this franchise. There are legitimate hardcore fans. But I wonder how many of these box office dollars can be attributed to people that thought it was funny to go with their girlfriends or boyfriends.
It got a B+ cinema score. That's the exact same cinema score as 50 Shades Darker. The first one actually got a C+. So the audiences liked these movies more as they went along, or at least the second and the third one they liked much more than the first one.
They knew what to expect.
I guess they knew what to expect, but maybe there's a camp value to some of it. I think some people are just legitimate fans of the franchise.
Well, there's a film out this weekend that's not quite your Paddington, but you like it a lot. And now, based on your recommendation, your enthusiastic recommendation this morning, I'm going to go see Peter Rabbit.
This is a movie that I liked. It has obviously, we talked about it on SJU, it has stirred some controversy with the allergy crowd. And I actually, there was a lot of people I tweeted out that I liked this movie. I read Peter Rabbit when I was a kid. But I was not a devotee of Peter Rabbit, and I didn't realize, I tweeted out that I love this movie, and so many people saying, like, I cannot go see this movie, it is an abomination, and it is a blight on the face of the Peter Rabbit that I know, having not seen it, but apparently many people not looking forward to this movie, just based off the fact that, and I will agree, the trailers did not do a good job of selling it. I saw the trailers for this movie and thought it looked awful, but I ended up giving it a shot. I enjoyed it. Some people have some issues with it. It opened at just over $25 million. It hits the U.S. first. It's going to open in much of the world throughout March, including the U.K. That's about $10 million higher than Paddington 2 did back here in January. So not a bad start here in the U.S. We'll see how it does worldwide. It surprised me, and just reading the reviews, a lot of the reviews that I read about this movie seemed to be not happy with the fact that it was not
faithful,
the same as the Beatrix Potter stories, but I honestly think, first of all, I don't know how fair it is to judge a movie based on the fact that it's not what it is, but some people feel like that way about Superman. A lot of people feel very loyal to a character, and they think that if something comes out that's not loyal to the spirit of that character. However, just on a kid's movie with no emotional attachment to the books really whatsoever, I enjoyed it, so we'll see how that goes.
I knew a couple of people that had very strong feelings about Peter Rabbit as kids, so I can see that a little bit. I'm going to go see it based on your recommendation, let you know what I think. Another one that came out that struck me as, and you've seen this one too, is the 5:17 to Paris. Felt a lot like a movie like Sully that takes one moment and then tries to really incredible moment, but then tries to stretch that into an entire film. It doesn't quite work.
Yeah, 1570 to Paris debuted at $12.5 million. That's outside the top 5 debuts for Clint Eastwood. But given the reception from critics and even audiences, it did not get it got a B- cinema score, which isn't fantastic for an audience. So it looks like this one might fade away fairly quickly. And yeah, I thought that it was, this and Sully kind of had the same issues for me, which was that it is about an event that was 2 minutes long-ish at most. And I really didn't think that the story leading up to it was told very well. Clint Eastwood, of course, kind of made headlines for the fact that he cast he cast the 3 Americans that had a big part in this as themselves. 2 were in the armed services. 1 was their friend. They were on a vacation, a holiday to Europe, and there was an attack on a train that they helped to foil. That wasn't necessarily my issue with the film. I just thought the story wasn't particularly told well. It's just kind of lackadaisical. And again, I think that this was an event that you could have told a very intriguing story about that just wasn't very well told, not to take away from their heroism or that event. And it's that part of the movie was shot very viscerally. Just everything else around it just didn't quite work for me. So not a huge debut, and considering the reaction, I don't know how well it's going to do as far as legs go.
Yeah, I think Sully for me was the same thing, where it was like there was not a lot of tension in the movie. It was a really well shot, well acted movie, but it was basically like, is this guy a hero? Yeah,
He's a hero. As were the people on board that train that foiled the attack. So yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't think of the best film version of that story that could have been made. But
Jumanji is continuing to hang in there.
It bumped down to 4th place, but it only dropped about 8% from last weekend, which, again, that and the 5th place show, Greatest Showman, they continue to have great holds. It is now Sony's 3rd highest global release ever, behind Skyfall and Spider-Man 3. And it also made, this was a jump in the charts that we talked about 2 or 3 weeks ago. If you look at the 2017 worldwide charts, it just broke into 2017's top 5 global releases. It jumped over Guardians. It jumped over Wolf Warrior. It jumped over Spider-Man. It is now in the top 5. All the comic book movies are bumped out of the top 5 from last year. Yeah, I mean, what else can you say about Jumanji? It's still lighting up the box office here. It's still doing well internationally, and it still has some international markets left to go. So that I think globally, kind of stealing Star Wars' thunder as far as taking headlines and print away.
Oh, yeah.
Being no one expected it to be this kind of hit.
No,
certainly not Sony.
They just wanted it to not drown in the face of Star Wars,
Yeah.
and it's been such a phenomenal hit. We know we are going to get a sequel, which may or may not unveil the secrets of the Jumanji game maker.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah.
The Rock said that other people are writing the film, so we'll see.
Yeah.
But I have to imagine he has a fair bit of influence.
Well, I think The Rock would have a little bit of influence on what happens with
at
the
this
story.
point. Let's look at the international box office. What's going on in the world?
Well, that was the
We already did
2017
that.
international. Yeah. But what I do want to look at is we mentioned The Greatest Showman. It dropped 16%. It's still in the top 5. It's approaching $150 million. And looking at musicals since the year 2000, 21st century, it breaks into the top 5 there. It's steaming up those charts. There you go. It's at number 5. It's lagging just behind Hugh Jackman's other musical, Les Miserables. It's going to jump that. It's going to outgross La La Land probably this week. It's closing in on Chicago. Now, number 1, not going to close in on Beauty and the Beast. That has the advantage of being a Disney film. But again, this is live action, so this does not include animated musicals. But yeah, I mean, we said just about everything we can say about The Greatest Showman. Phenomenal success, the way that it's hung around, and it keeps going too. We'll see. Black Panther obviously is going to demolish the top spot at the box office next weekend.
Yes.
We will see if, given the fact that you have Peter Rabbit in a second weekend, you're going to have 50 Shades in a second weekend. I would imagine that either Jumanji or The Greatest Showman, or maybe both, will drop out of the top 5, but you never know. Both of these movies hang around longer than you think. It's a 4-day holiday weekend next week, which means the kids are out of school for that Monday. Who knows?
I really think Black Panther is already tracking so phenomenally. We'll be obviously talking about it next Tuesday because we won't be here next Monday, but
Yes,
that's going to be the big story for the next several weeks, and I think that's when we really see those charts changing.
Yeah.
I'm still blown away by Beauty and the Beast, if I'm honest. Like
$500 million just here in the U.S.
It's just bonkers. Per Screen is where we get to talk about some of the smaller films and some of the films that were premiered at Sundance. We're starting to see them come out. These are going to be some of the better films of the year.
Yeah, and this is a tiny movie called Golden Exits. It debuted at Sundance, but it didn't debut at Sundance this year. It debuted at Sundance last year. So this is a movie that debuted over a year ago, directed by Alex Ross Perry. It stars Jason Schwartzman, Chloe Sevigny, Mary Louise Parker. It's about two families in Brooklyn, which is probably why it did so well on one screen in New York. So it made $11,719 per screen. It was on one screen. And the director, Alex Ross Perry, is credited as a screenwriter on Disney's upcoming Christopher Robin movies. So again, this is what, Per Screen, one screen. Hey, it did great on that one screen.
Yeah,
in New York.
well, you know what New Yorkers love, and I say this as a New Yorker.
Movies about New York?
Yes, we do.
Exactly.
New Yorkers love we love to talk about Brooklyn.
Yeah.
What's up, Brooklyn? I grew up there. All right. Domestic, 2018.
2018 domestic. 50 Shades jumps in the top 5, opens in the top 5. Den of Thieves actually climbs the spot. It's made about $40 million. It's doubled its opening. Den of Thieves and 12 Strong have both more than doubled their openings. Not bad considering that they were January releases. Insidious and The Maze Runner are enjoying that. Last couple of weeks is number 1 and 2. Paddington drops, Commuter drops, Peter Rabbit drops in at number 8. Proud Mary Winchester. They're all going to be looking up at Black Panther, which is going to be the number 1 movie on that chart next week off of its opening weekend, which we'll talk about here in a second. They're just Insidious. Enjoy your last week as the highest grossing movie of 2018 because that will come to an end next week.
And that's going to happen too in the worldwide charts as well. I mean, particularly as we go through the next couple of months with the big blockbusters releasing. But man, I think Black Panther it's already tracking.
It's tracking, which we'll talk about at the end, where it might fall with some of the other
Marvel
superhero movies. But the tracking on this movie keeps building. Yeah. And, here in the U.S., like I said, next week is a 4-day holiday weekend, which means we'll have extra numbers to talk about next week. But that is also going to help it because it not only has the traditional Friday, Saturday, Sunday gross, it's going to have a Monday gross on that opening weekend. It's
got a great critical response. Number 1 Fandango from Marvel movies.
Yeah.
What's going on in the world?
The worldwide box office, I continue to crunch numbers and try to I was pulling from like 5 different sources today. So here's the best that I can do with the worldwide box office. Maze Runner and Insidious, still 1 and 2. 50 Shades, that jumped in over $135 million. There's 2 movies from China on this chart. Forever Young at number 4. Till the End of the World is another Chinese movie. That's at number 10, The Commuter. Padmavat. I went into a numbers spiral today trying to find news about that movie because I thought that it was being underestimated last week. I found some local reporting of how well the movie was doing, but I had to convert rupees and crore into dollars and I was carrying decimal points. But what I found was that it's made about 70. My estimation from the information I could find is it's made about $77 million, which isn't bad. Every site that I saw had a different number for it. Some didn't have it listed at all. But from the information that I can gather, it's made about $77 million. Not bad at all. There's a French film on there named Les Touches 3. It is the 3rd in a comedy trilogy. It's on the chart at number 9. That's what I love. I love finding these little, these movies that are open in other countries that maybe you haven't heard of. And it's fun because they're not going to be on that chart for long. In about 3 months, it's just going to be the Marvels movies and the Deadpools and the big blockbusters. So the early part of the year is when these smaller foreign films get their moment to shine on the worldwide box office chart because last year, Wolf Warrior 2, the only non-English language film that made the top 10 in the world.
That we still haven't seen, Dan.
We still haven't seen. I did see the movie we talked about last week, A Fantastic Woman.
I've been dying to see that. Actually, a friend of mine is going to loan it to me. She has a copy of it.
Oh. Well, I saw
I'm going to go support it in the theater.
Yeah, I sought it out. There's a local independent chain. Well, not independent, but a smaller local chain that plays them into some foreign cinema. I found it here in LA, and I recommend it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I like this moment on the worldwide charts as well, and I love talking about the smaller films. But you know what? There's also going to be here and there on those charts at the end of the year going to be a surprise hit here and there. You're going to get a few films that are not the ones that we thought would land there. I hope. Get Out was there for a long time,
Yeah, Logan hung in there till the very end, which nobody really expected. It is not one that anyone would have thought would be on the worldwide charts or even near the worldwide charts at the end of the year. So yeah, there's always things on there that you're like, oh wow, I would not have expected that.
Surprises.
Definitely room for surprises. One thing that's not going to be surprised though is Black Panther's debut next weekend or this weekend. I wanted to look at, people are saying it's tracking for, what they're saying right now is it's tracking for $150 million plus 4-day opening weekend here in the United States. President's Day, the U.S. holiday, is next Monday. So they're saying $150 million plus for the 4 days. These are figures for the 3-day weekend. So, to kind of chart on here, just to keep it fair, this is where it would have to kind of clear if it wants to set the box office record for all-time standalone debuts. This is what we have so far. Deadpool leading that pack. Spider-Man Homecoming. And again, that was his debut standalone movie as Wonder Woman. She appeared in Batman v Superman. That was her debut standalone movie. So some of these are character debuts. Some of these are just the first movies that these superheroes have been in that are their movie, which is what Black Panther would be since he appeared in Civil War. But $132 million in 3 days is the mark that Black Panther is going to want to try to hit in order to be the highest grossing 3-day weekend for a superhero standalone movie. We'll see how that goes. Spider-Man Homecoming, Man of Steel, Spider-Man, the original Tobey Maguire movie, and the Wonder Woman in the top 5.
I think we're going to see Black Panther at the head of that chart. I really do.
You think it'll make over 132 by Sunday?
I do.
We'll see.
We'll see.
I mean, it could. There were expectations for Wonder Woman that were set. I think, it was tracking pretty well, and still it blew those expectations away. I think after a certain point, we saw this with It. I mean, It was tracking to a huge number, and it ended up even blowing away that expectation. I think to a certain point, tracking only does so well, and you just have to sit back and
watch
see
it unfold.
What the numbers actually are. But the hype is huge on this movie. There's definitely anticipation. Disney's opening it on, the first, not the first holiday weekend of the year, but certainly the first kind of removed from, the January holiday rush. Now we're into February. And we'll see how Black Panther does, not just here, but around the world. Here's my prediction, and I'm going to go out on a limb here. It's going to make a lot of money.
I think it'll do all right.
Yeah.
I think it'll do all right. I mean, we got to stand by the courage of our wild guesses.
Yeah.
And
I might be wrong, but I think it's going to make a lot of money.
I think it'll do okay.
Yeah.
I think it'll be an okay movie for Disney. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone talk about this movie once it's out and the word of mouth on it. I'm very curious to see what the word of mouth is as compared to the critical response, because that is a thing that I can never, ever predict.
Word of mouth?
No, yeah, I mean, I feel like the audience response to a film versus the critical response is not necessarily a thing that I'm good at predicting. I think I'm pretty okay at predicting a critical response, but not an audience response necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, look at the divide between the critics with Last Jedi and the audience. Going into it, The Last Jedi had an enormous amount of critical buzz, and then when it came out, the audience response, obviously some very positive response, but also I think for a lot of people, an unanticipated negative response. Not me, if you go back and check the tape. I predicted that it would be a very controversial film, but that just goes to show you that critics may not always be tapping into the things that audiences are tapping into as far as elements of the movie that might work, elements that they might not be going along with. Superhero movies are a little more, it seems like, in line. They don't throw you for as many curves as Star Wars, for example, did. And that was an atypical Star Wars movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there were things that, anyway, it's just been an interesting witnessing over the years. I thought that The Last Jedi would be divisive as well, because I found it that way for the critics that I talked to. I had a very different take on it than some of our other critic friends did, and was not
as did I. I had
rapturously in love.
That's all that I'd heard really was this kind of rapturous response to it, and then I saw it and I was like, oh well, okay, well, certainly it's got some great parts, but it's interesting. So we'll see what the audience at large thinks about Black Panther.
Black Panther, I think, is a movie, from what I've talked to about people, and we'll get your review, the spoiler review this weekend on the Screen Junkies main channel, is a movie that people have had problems with, that I understand and I can see. But as a whole, look, Marvel typically doesn't put out trash, and this is a really good one, in my opinion.
I've been trying to shut it. It's been so hard because critic screening started for this movie about 2 weeks ago, and I haven't been able to see it until tomorrow. So it's been so hard for me to it's like all your friends are talking about it at the table. You're like, I can't listen. I can't. So I've been trying to shut everything out. I'll get to see it tomorrow, and then you get to say that to me.
Yeah.
When I get to review, we're going to do the spoiler review right here later this week.
All right. Well, it's been fun charting and talking about the things. There's going to be a lot to talk about next Tuesday, I am sure.
Yes, next Tuesday. We'll be off next Monday. We'll be back here next Tuesday doing more charting. We'll be fun.
Chart and talk about the box office and see, hey, how did it all shake out with Black Panther after all?
We'll see how it does.
You guys let us know what you think in the comments. Are you looking forward to it? Are you not? What do you think of that 50 Shades Freed? 50 Shades Freed. Is that going to be on the box? You think it's going to be on the charts for a couple of weeks?
Yeah, no, it'll be there for a little bit. Yeah.
Couple of weeks. All right. Thanks, Dan.